I want to bring in a guest now. I'm joined by retired Colonel Miri Eisin, the director for the International Institute for Counter-Terrorism at Reichman University. Miri, thank you so much for being here. Specifically, when it comes to these foreign nationals that were released, this is in addition to the hostage deal that we're hoping to see 50 Israelis released. But with these 11 foreign nationals, is this a sign that hopefully Hamas will be releasing more foreign nationals via other negotiations with other outside factors?
Nicole, throughout this time period, we're all very focused on the diplomacy that has to do with the Israeli hostages taken so brutally. And as we've always said, they weren't the only ones taken brutally. There have been a lot of side negotiations. They have to converge onto the main one. I want to be clear, the side negotiations, Iran has been trying to involve itself with its own ties via Thailand to be able to help release the Thai nationals. There's a lot of backdrop that's going on there. It's not just the U.S. as the big mediator. It's bringing Qatar and Egypt to the table. Who speaks on behalf of the different foreign nationals? So the United States has been very strong, not only for its own ones, there are additional ones, and we want to hope all of the hostages should have been released, should never have been taken, right? But there's no question that the side agreements are something that we have to take note of because we want them all to be released. But at the end, what Hamas is doing is trying to keep only the Israelis and only the ones that they are going to, as said before by Zach, only the ones that are going to be the men that the Hamas are going to claim are all military, and suddenly it's going to become as if, in Hamas terms, something about, military versus prisoners, which is a very bad framing that I really hope we can avoid.
You mentioned Egypt, and when it comes to this diplomacy that we're seeing, as you said, really the main negotiators that we're talking about are the United States and Qatar, but Egypt really trying to make a stance when it comes to these hostages that have been released. It's important to note that when these Israelis crossed through the Rafah border crossing, the only live feed we had was from Egypt. So clearly they're trying to show that they were more involved in these negotiations than the media might be paying attention to.
Egypt is a border with the Gaza Strip. Egypt has shared this common border with the Gaza Strip from 2005 when Israel left the Gaza Strip. Egypt, in its own way, very much abhors, is very much against Hamas. Hamas is Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas is a terror organization. They've been very challenged by them within Egypt. So Egypt is most definitely part of the negotiations. That doesn't mean that they're the ones talking to Hamas. They're not the ones who are trying to pressure them. But you cannot do any of this without the facilitation of Egypt, and they deserve that credit for doing so in a quiet way and for not trying to take the credit in any way, but being a very strong facilitator.
Meanwhile, Miri, what can we make of this truly bizarre press conference that we saw yesterday in Gaza with both the Spain and the Belgian Prime Minister holding a press conference moments before these hostages were being released right around 4 p.m. yesterday, also talking about a permanent ceasefire. What does this talk about, the international attention that we're getting when it comes to this ceasefire right now?
Okay, so Nicole, I'm not sure that they were actually in the Gaza Strip. I think they were on the Rafah side of the Egyptian side, not in the Gaza Strip. Not that it makes it better. I think that every single international country right now is trying to understand what's going on in that sense. And I think that they're all looking at the day after. And when I say the day after, right now, there's no question that there are two very different views of what's supposed to happen in the next 5 to 10 days. For Israel, Nicole, it's about getting as many hostages back as possible, hopefully at the lowest price when it comes to the terror prisoners that are being let out. But we have to pay that price. Otherwise, we won't get back those hostages. And then it's going to be back to the military pressure. The only reason that Hamas agreed to these exchanges is because of the military pressure. And if we, Israel, do not return with the IDF, with our capabilities on military pressure on Hamas, they're not going to release anymore. In Israel, there's a great infograph. Great, nothing's great nowadays, but there's an infograph that shows, the 240 4 women were released. And so it was down 4. And now 13 Israelis have been released. So it's down 19. There's still over 200 hostages that are held there. Let's say that they let out another 40 in the next few days. How are they going to let out more if we don't do the pressure? So that press conference to me is the Spanish, the Belgian. I don't want to be rude, okay? That's not nice on TV. But you can say that when you're from Spain and Belgium. How do you think we're going to impact Hamas into giving back the rest of the hostages? How are we going to make sure that Hamas do not rule there the next day? So they can have their opinion that it needs to be done through diplomacy. I don't think it is only diplomacy. We need the diplomacy. It is also the military option, and they're trying to avoid that.
Meanwhile, Miri, we're getting some new images right now of some of the hostages reuniting with their family members. We have Margalit Moses and her family right here. You can see these images, and we also have new footage of Yafa Adar also with her family. Look at this, reuniting with their families after 50 days, 7 weeks in captivity. I want to point out Yafa Adar was someone who really got a lot of media attention as a clip of her being kidnapped by Hamas truly went viral. So it also just shows the propaganda and the psychological toll that these families have been facing because they saw footage of their loved ones ripped away. Another one of these hostages, Hana Katsir, the PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, had originally claimed she was killed, yet now she was one of these hostages that have been released. So, Miri, going forward for the family members that continue to wait on word for their loved ones, just the psychological toll that it's taking, it cannot be talked about enough.
Nicole, think of the psychological toll on you and me. We just watched these photographs and I got goosebumps, and I'm sure you did too. And that's for 2 women who for 47 days, 48, 49, who counts, were in Hamas captivity, and they're now with their families. So just think about what it does to all of us, to the families 1 degree above, but to every single Israeli, to every single human being. We're all under the challenges right now of these psychological ops. And when I say that, I'm telling people now, you're watching us, be careful about what you watch. Hamas want to portray themselves as being on moral equivalency with any kind of military in the world. They're not.